Hi, welcome back. I'm Grayson.
I'm Caleb.
I'm Dominic.
And I'm Isaiah, and this is Fireside Friday Nights. Welcome back to Fireside Friday Nights. So in today's world, there's a lot of media and outside sources that we, as Christians, probably shouldn't be watching or we disagree with. And as Christian guys, we need to be discerning in what we are putting into our minds and watching. We also had a comment on one of our episodes that asked us to discuss the Chosen TV series, and if we thought that that was something that we should be watching as Christians. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. But before we get into it, make sure you like this episode, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and wherever you get your podcasts, and turn on notifications. So, to start this discussion, what are your thoughts on media in today's world?
So, okay, I guess I'll start. So my first opinion that I would say is in discussing discernment in media and what we're watching. As Christians, we need to realize that we can't just be drowned out. We can't just be like dead to certain things. Like as a culture, we've become so just like what's the word? It's not dead, but like out of tune or out of touch to what we see. Like I'll be scrolling through Instagram and I'll just see like a guy get flown out of his car in a car wreck and then like it and be like we just become dead to certain things in our society. Same with like sex scenes in movies, for example, which just like say for example, the amount of sex scenes in movies nowadays. There was actually a study done by UCLA that has actually they came to the conclusion that Gen Z is getting tired of the actual like sex scenes in movies. So I'll read it here real quick. 1,500 people were surveyed. 51% wanted to see platonic relationships and friendships portrayed more. 47.5% said they felt sex isn't needed in movies, and 44% find it overused. This could explain why there's less eroticism in today's movie. The key Gen Z demographic doesn't want it, which I think is funny because I feel like there's more and they haven't toned back yet, which is actually a funny thing that they say. But and as we can talk about more later in this episode, if we look at like Disney, for example, there was for like the agenda that they're pushing in all their movies, there was a lady who was interviewed. I cannot remember her name right now, but she said that the media that Disney's putting out, she goes, are not so secret gay agenda. She literally said that they're trying to push LGBTQ stuff in their movies and they're not trying to hold back. And we can even say, which I guess if we'll put a disclaimer in, but Texas, like so media, pornography is a huge, huge problem in today's world.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we can say the problem that's plaguing 85-90% of men in the world. I don't know those numbers exactly, but we'll definitely have a video about this at some point. But Texas has realized that this is a problem, the media that's being put out, and Texas banned Pornhub, and I don't know there's other places, but these like as Christians, I don't know if it was necessarily a religious thing, but as Christians, we need to be discerning in what we are watching and what we are putting into our brains, and we need to instead of just being pushovers or just brushing by and not caring about what we're watching, what we see or what other people are seeing, we need to speak out about what we're doing.
Do you know, like when Texas made Pornhub illegal?
It was like last month.
Last month? Okay. I would love to find the results for the study of that, like just to see what it affects it.
I think we can talk about it in, I don't know if this necessarily this video, but we can talk about that on another one especially. So what are your opinions on the media that's out there, what we should be watching as Christians, what we should be listening to, social media in general, like music? What else do you guys have to say?
Well, I mean, we kind of covered somewhat of the music in an earlier episode, but going on kind of in most movies and stuff, like I feel like almost every movie nowadays has one at least suggestive scene in it, and I would say that we shouldn't be watching movies with sex scenes, obviously. But that's like one of the bigger qualifications. And then swearing can get overused in a lot of movies. Like I think Deadpool has over 400 uses of the F word in it. And it's just like that isn't good for your mind either.
Yeah, and in our society today, which things that our culture has just accepted as fine, or just like, for example, back in the 1980s or even early 2000s, gay people and LGBTQ push, anything that someone would like, movies had gay jokes in them all the time, making fun of people who were gay. Okay, nowadays that's what we accept and appraise. It's like, Caleb, I can't remember if you said this on episode, but you said that whatever one generation how did you put it? Whatever one generation
tolerates, the other one accepts.
Yeah, tolerates, the other one accepts. So let's say that in the 80s they like pushed people down for it. In the 2000s they tolerated it, and in the 2020s they accept it. Yeah,
and I think that should be something that people should take in mind, because I think there are people that are pushing certain agendas through social media or movies or propaganda or all this stuff just because the world is sinful, I guess, you know.
And I've watched other like podcasts and stuff, especially like Brett Cooper from the Daily Wire, because she has a lot of entertainment stuff she'll study. Every movie these days, half of it's just soft porn. It's just people, they're just trying to see how far they can get without pushing over the PG-13 barrier, or how far like they can get without pushing over whatever guidelines are put in place to still get some sort of eroticism or something into their movie. But as the studies have shown, people don't really want it anymore.
Right.
Like, I would love to go to the movies and just watch a movie that was like purely like enjoyable. For some reason, I heard that the Uncharted movie did really bad. I went and watched that movie. That was one of the that movie was so good when I saw it in theaters.
It was a great movie.
And I thought I was very confused when I saw that the reviews didn't do very well. I thought the movie was great. I thought that it had a really intriguing storyline and it went really good. And there was never a moment where I was bored with the movie. I was always like on the edge of my seat, wanting to know what happened next.
People want more quality than just quantity. Like
we talked about, like, even before we did our podcast, wanted to talk about like Marvel movies and stuff. The MCU after Endgame went so far downhill.
Exactly. Like, not even just Endgame. Like, after Infinity War, I know so many people that just wanted it to end there.
Like, okay, I saw Captain Marvel is the only one I haven't seen, just because I heard how bad it was. And with these like feminism pushes in media as well, I think that's something that's going to push them downhill. Like, there's people who have referred to it as the MCU because they're trying to push like female empowerment and stuff. That's the only. I watched Black Widow. I didn't think it was terrible, but I'm not watching Captain Marvel. It's the only MC movie I haven't seen. But when they went the quantity over quality thing, like when they started with Disney Plus and started pushing out series, it was terrible. And then they put all their time into No Way Home. And I thought No Way Home was an amazing, incredible movie.
No Way Home is arguably the best. Could be argued as the best Marvel movie ever.
I would put it up there.
So a good example of this is one of my favorite movie shows by far has got to be Dragons by DreamWorks.
Like How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, How to Train Your Dragons. And there's so many people who want to have a How to Train Your Dragons 4 movie, but I think I was doing research on this, or on the movie series, and they're not coming out with a number 4 because the creator said that he wanted to end it there, and there was no reason to do more. So
How to Train Your Dragon 3 was wrapped up perfectly.
Yeah. And there were some people who wanted more dragon, stuff, but
Race to the Edge had 8 seasons? I watched all those episodes on that 3 times probably. That show was incredible.
Or more.
Insanely good show.
And so that's the thing. It shows they had quantity, but they also had quality in those shows. And the movies. The movies are incredible. And you see like the advancements in the movies themselves. Same with like Shrek. Okay, the first 3 Shrek movies were incredible. And then they tried to make the 4th one, and the 4th one just kind of went downhill. I don't like Toy Story. There's 4 of those, and they're making a 5th one. I did not think Toy Story 4 was bad. I was actually very impressed with the fourth installment of a movie franchise as such as Toy
I
Story.
think my opinion, it didn't quite live up to the other Toy Story movies though.
I didn't
and
think
they
it was a
had
bad movie at all.
And
though.
it wasn't a bad movie, but it's like when you're talking about Star Wars, like I don't think any Star Wars movie is a bad movie.
That's debatable.
Prequels. Okay, so the
they're not
first three.
bad.
Okay, fine. And then
they're
the
not
prequels.
good.
Some people hate the prequels. Some people love the prequels.
The
but then
prequels are severely underrated. in
I
my
think
opinion.
they're good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But the
Prequels
Disney
are.
ones, I don't. The Disney Star Wars.
The-
I mean,
The Mandalorian's fine.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian's really good. Book of Boba
So,
Fett was really good.
The
but-
Force Awakens was the first sequel, and it's actually not horrible. I actually kind of enjoyed it, but the next two were just they just didn't fit.
It was just a
They
money
didn't
push.
work.
Well,
Rogue One as an individual story. Rogue One was an amazing
Yeah,
Rogue
movie
One was one of my favorite
It-
movies.
it is
Solo
my
was a
favorite.
great movie.
because Solo.
So, see, here's the thing. I didn't like Solo so much the first time. You gotta watch it again though. It's hard to get over. It's hard to get over Han Solo's actor.
Okay.
but you.
A lot of people, these days. So I personally would love to go into the movie business. I would love to do something in Hollywood, something with acting, some sort. I always hear people say, they're like, why can't Hollywood have an original idea anymore? Well, from the standpoint that I would look at it, I want to make money. Like Indiana Jones 5, it was not a terrible movie. It was a cash grab, yes, but it was an original story. I think like when I heard that Chris Pratt possibly would be playing Indiana Jones, I was full aboard that train, and that didn't happen, and then I was sad. But like Indiana Jones 5 and 4, those were both crash grabs. The first three in the 80s were incredible, and that's one reason I think they haven't made like a new or a reboot of Back to the Future. Back to the Future is so solid. Like those are some of the best movies I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
my mom loves those movies.
And I've watched those many times, and they haven't made a sequel, and I'm not angry at that. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Well, I know people are very interested in new content. Like, if you do the same thing over again, like for Star Wars, the sequels were basically just the original trilogy done over again.
It
Yeah.
was the original trilogy.
They're just trying to
done
reboot
over.
it so they
But
can make more money.
There's new stuff. Like, I went to the FNAF movie in October, and that was a great movie. Like, it doesn't follow like the game lore as much as I'd like it to, but it was good on its own, and it's getting a sequel, and it deserves the hundreds of millions of dollars that it got.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like other movies, like Uncharted, for example. They made that an independent movie from a video game, and I thought that was an incredible movie. What other movies I'm trying to think that came out? A lot of the stuff today, as we would say as Christians, we should be discerning about, because a lot of the stuff today is just agenda pushes in the media.
That's very true.
And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like some movies, especially, like one movie I really wanted to talk about before we even started our podcast was Leave the World Behind, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
a
Oh, yeah.
movie on Netflix. It was produced by the Obamas. It's based off this book written in 2020 about like this post-apocalyptic world. The whole power grid goes down, no internet, no one can communicate with each other. The Tesla vehicles get overrun. And it's a really eerie movie because it feels like it could happen any day now. And that was what I want to talk about, because I don't know how to interpret these movies where it talks about like being overrun by the Middle East and China and Russia as like communist parties, but like it's weird. And some of the stuff that's put out there, I don't know if it's necessarily trying to hint at something through the media. Another movie that I thought was really good, it was produced, I can't remember what the guy's name is, but he works for the Blaze TV, and he wrote this book called A Nefarious Plot, and they made the movie is called Nefarious. It's about this lawyer who has to prove this guy in prison who killed a bunch of people either insane or like insane with multiple personality disorder, or as the guy says, possessed by a demon. So the guy is actually possessed by a demon, and the lawyer is an atheist. He has to prove that the guy's insane, and he doesn't believe it. And the prisoner, the criminal, says that the guy will commit 3 murders before he leaves, and then the guy possessed by a demon knows everything about this lawyer from his birth, and he knows like that the guy his mom was in the hospital sick, and they pulled the plug, and he knows the guy did that, and he says, so that's 1 murder. And then his wife commits an abortion, and that's 2 murders. And then he kills the guy with the electric chair, so he sentences him to death. So that's 3 murders. And then the lawyer guy gets possessed by the demon after the other guy gets executed. and then he believes in Jesus at the end. It's a really interesting movie. It's super good, and the thing is, I think it's funny because it has a biblical undertone from the guy who wrote it, and it got rated R. There's no swearing in the movie. There's not that much violence. There's like one scene where the guy like gets out of his chains or his handcuffs and like punches a guy and like holds him and like chokes him. And there's an electric chair. But the movie should have been PG-13. I feel, except it could just maybe for scariness, and they have like cigarettes in it, but like that's PG-13 every single movie. But
yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
PG now. Like,
yeah.
But the amount that rating systems have changed over the years is crazy. Like The Matrix would be like low level PG-13
Yeah.
these days.
But the one thing I was going to say about it, rated R, I wonder if the media, like the people who, because when a movie is made, it goes into like a rating review, and then those people choose what the rating is so that it gets. So if it's rated R and Christians are against going to rated R movies, it's not going to reach as many people.
Right.
And I wonder if that was the case with that movie. I don't know, but I wonder if. I don't know. Do you guys have any other movies that you like think of that? Just are good movies that in general just like recommend if.
I think like the old Left Behind series or Left Behind movies. I think those are really good ones that you should
mean like the
watch.
one about the rapture, like in the
Yeah.
plane and stuff?
Yeah, with Kirk Cameron.
Kirk Cameron.
Yeah.
Those ones are pretty good. And
I-
the book series are. I know not a lot of Christians like them because
It's
kinda,
not biblical.
It
but
paints a picture of the end times that's not necessarily true because we don't know exactly how it's going to happen.
But exactly, we don't know exactly how
But
it's going to
this
happen.
could tie into our discussion on The Chosen because the comment that we got said that they didn't like The Chosen because it was kind of like telling people this happened even if it didn't exactly happen this way.
Okay, so I do want to go back to our like the movies one, but I think we can talk about The Chosen now at this point. So I've watched all of The Chosen through season 3. I haven't watched season 4 yet. But my experience with it and my opinions are the picture that it paints, especially imagine if someone doesn't believe and they watch the entire show. The picture that it paints is a very good representation of how I believe and how you could visualize Jesus' life on earth. Even if it's like not word for word. A lot of the scenes are like the lines are exactly Jesus' sermon from the Bible, or Jesus however he reprimands the woman at the well. Or like when in John 8 when she's the woman is caught in the act of adultery. Stuff like that. And I think it's a very good representation of Jesus' life on earth, even if it isn't entirely word for word.
Well-
I feel like it's a good way to reach the unreached.
yeah. Well, and then, like it might sound terrible, but if you like made it exactly word for word every single time, like it wouldn't be it wouldn't be nearly as interesting. Like they have
Okay.
to have they have to be able to like have a character arc because like
You're not going to get an audience
yeah,
if it's
like,
boring.
if it's
Well,
so
and I don't think boringness is the problem. I think that the show is a very good. I think it takes some things in directions that definitely are plausible that people would never think of.
well yeah, it makes Jesus seem like this this incredibly fun person to
Are
hang
you
out
saying
with.
that he wouldn't have been?
No,
Is that
no.
what you're
but
saying? Is that what you're saying?
You think that's what I'm saying? I'm a pastor's kid, bud.
But I think that like the way that it portrays the relationship between the disciples and the relationship between Jesus and his disciples and the women around them, I think that it's even if it's putting words into Jesus' mouth, which is what our comment had said, I believe that it is a good show for Christians to watch and non-Christians. I think that the show has been done in such a way that is good content for people to be watching. It is biblical, so we can. It actually has ties to certain things in that we can go back to as Christians, and that all in all, the way it's produced is good enough that we can actually say that it's just a good piece of content to actually just put into our minds no matter what.
yeah.
So one thing I was gonna say, going back to because you were saying Kirk Cameron, all the PureFlix movies, so like I would say Fireproof because Kirk Cameron's in that, but all the like Courageous, Do You Believe, all the Gods Not Dead movies, all the Pureflix movies, very, very good movies that I would recommend anyone to watch. But movies that don't necessarily have a Christian undertone, what are our opinions on those?
I think they should be fine as long as, like, again, discernment. You have to figure out what might trip you up as a Christian. So, like, as a Christian, you need to figure out what might cause stumbling blocks and what might you should, like, not watch. Like, yeah. So, I don't know.
Yeah. So the first step, in my opinion, of watching it is you check the rating, right? For me, I'm underage. I don't watch anything that's rated R. So and then you check why it's rated. Because if it's rated for sexual stuff, I'm not watching it. Like, I'm not going to watch the movie if it's rated because it's got sexual stuff. If it's rated for swearing, I'm not as, like, it's not, and if it's rated for violence, I mean, I feel
rated
not,
for violence is a really weird rating because, I mean, if it's gore, I feel it's different, but, like, rated R for violence is a,
it has to be
shoot, what movie was I going to say?
Right. And I know I said I was talking about the FNAF movie. It was PG-13, but they could have done a rated R cut for gore, and I think it would have really fit because of it's a horror game, and it could have been more of a horror movie, and I know a lot of people wanted it to be. And if it was rated R, I think I still would have watched it because it would have been rated R for violence, and I'm not necessarily very sensitive to that kind of stuff.
One thing that I was very like one movie I really like, so the Dark Knight movie. It's a very dark and, like, I love Christopher Nolan's movies, and I think the Dark Knight are amazing movies. And first time I saw it, I thought it was going to be like a very gory movie, but it was only PG-13. And I was very impressed with the Dark Knight movie as a whole, and it made it really cool because that's what they'll say, like, repeating content. The Dark Knight was a new idea. Like, the way they portrayed the Batman story was completely different than they'd ever done before.
Right. And I mean, a lot of, like, Christopher Nolan's movies are like that, where it's new concepts and he just does it so well.
Inception's one of my favorite movies, and that it's just so it's an idea that no one would ever think of, and I love the movie. It's incredible.
Yeah, I know another director that a lot of people like is Guillermo del Toro, and he made, like, Pacific Rim and the Pinocchio movie. So he takes, like, old concepts and just makes them better. Like, he made a Pinocchio movie, and I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's pretty good. And he's making a Frankenstein movie, which I've also heard is going to be very good. So even though they're not new concepts, he's just making them better. And he's actually my dad's favorite director.
Yeah, there was a movie that I was just thinking of, and I cannot remember what it was. But in, like, new or old concepts or new concepts that are done in a different way, like, that's what it was, Knives Out. If you've seen Knives Out or A Glass Onion. So those movies, like, the first one especially, there was a lot of just random swearing that I didn't think needed to be in there. But that was one of the best movies I've ever seen. Like, the way they portrayed the story, even in Glass Onion, those movies are so good. Like, the actual storytelling in the movie and the way it's portrayed and the idea of how the movie's actually filmed, it's incredible. Another movie that I had actually really liked was Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express. Those movies I thought were really, really good, and they were very well done. And the way they were shot, I was very impressed with.
Well, and then one of my favorite movies that more recently came out was the Top Gun Maverick that just came out.
That was really good.
And just the way they were able to portray the fighter pilots and stuff. So,
and see, like, that's like a sequel that came after 40 years, was it?
Yeah, it was a long time.
Another one I was thinking of was Incredibles 2. That movie came out 15 years after the original, and that movie was incredible. I thought that
it was an incredible
pun intended.
movie.
It was an incredible movie, but that movie was really well done. And that's what I think some of the things are, is if they're just doing these movies as cash grabs, say like the Star Wars content, Marvel movies these days, which Marvel has said that they are going to start putting more quality back into their movies and not just keep pushing stuff out.
They
and
better.
They're cutting back on Disney Plus shows as well. But I personally feel that, as a culture, we need to realize what we're watching, what we're putting into our minds, and how we're actually going to interpret it. If we're just becoming like brain zombies, like mind numbing from the stuff that we're watching, is it really a good thing? Like, speaking of mind numbing content, there's a famous YouTube channel for the Gen Alpha nowadays, and I have not watched it. I've kept myself pure from the mind torture. But Skibbity Toilet, I don't even know what it is, but there's a toilet that sings and says like Skibbity something.
It's a song that
it's like a song that
it's like a meme song.
It's like a meme song, and there's just this guy that sings the song, and it's a toilet that has a face, and I don't even know, but it's literally just mind numbing torture that has nothing. Should we play the song? Okay, so that's enough of that. So, it's literally just a toilet with a head out of it singing this stupid song, and this is what kids watch these days. Same with like, I mean, Cocomelon, for example.
Yeah.
Kids are literally just raised as screen zombies in Generation Alpha. And that's the thing. Like, Cocomelon has even started pushing their own gay agendas in their stuff, and Netflix has gotten a hold of them. And they have, like, shows on there talking about, like, a kid with 2 dads who's, like, he's saying you can be whatever you want to be, and you're not defined by your gender, and it's so stupid.
There is literally so many memes about Cocomelon. No.
It's just like, if you're under 5 years old, you love it. If you're over 5 years old, you hate it.
Well, what I would say is, like, stuff is just put out to be, like, sensory overload for these little kids. For example, like, growing up, some of my favorite shows, Blue's Clues. Blue's Clues is an amazing show.
Great show.
Or Backyardigans.
I did watch that show as a child. Like, Sesame Street even went woke. So, like, my parents stopped watching Sesame Street, but, like, Dora the Explorer even.
Nah,
like,
I hated Dora the Explorer.
Okay, it was
personally,
Wildcrats.
I'm a Wildcrats.
Wildcrats.
And Curious George is mine.
Curious George,
Wildcrats,
yeah.
yeah.
But, like, these shows, the kid shows that I was raised on, like, my dad would talk about the kid show I was raised on, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and whatever. Shows today are, like, sensory overload. But, like, when I was a kid, we had some prime TV shows.
Exactly.
Wildcrats was one of the best shows.
Wildcrats was amazing.
But, like, these shows, they're not even created as entertainment anymore. They're just created to babysit. They're artificial electronic babysitters. Mm-hmm. And one thing, so I was, as Christians, because I was going to, unless you have something else, I was going to start talking about Bible verses that talk about discernment, but I don't know if you guys have anything else before I do that.
No, you're good.
Well, I was just going to put in, like, just like you said, these mind-numbing things. You have to watch out for them because it's so easy to get entertained by them, and they do nothing for you. All they do is take your time.
Exactly. Well, so actually, one thing that made me think of this. So I was going to talk about books and stuff, but it's like growing up, talking about discernment, like I was one of the biggest fans of the Percy Jackson books. Those books are incredible. I loved those books.
I read them too.
And the mythology, like, it's not like I believe that it's true. I believe it as, like, a good story. And the story was, like, I thought the story was really good. But you're talking about taking your time, like, in one of the Percy Jackson books, they go to this casino where they eat these flowers that help them, and they, like, stop the perception of time, and they stay there for, like, 3 days because there's no windows.
Don't think
and that's what casinos are. They're meant to draw you in and not want you to leave because you're sensory overload and you're stimulated and you don't even realize there's no windows in casinos and stuff. Mm-hmm. But so one thing I was gonna say. So then for Bible verses, Proverbs 1:7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." Proverbs 3, Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Ephesians 5:6-10 says, "Let no one deceive you with empty words, for there is no such thing as God's wrath comes out on those who are disobedient. Therefore do not be partners with them. For you were once of darkness, but now you are in the light of the Lord. Live as children of the light, for the fruit of the light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth, and find out what pleases the Lord." Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, and you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will." And then Matthew 7:24 says, "Therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock." So even if we look at those, from the Bible talking about discernment. So as Christians, we need to look at what we are watching, what we're taking in, and be discerning, and don't conform to the pattern of the world. Don't just be pushed over by it either. Don't become mind dead to these things. But we need to actually show our morals through what we're watching. And then the other thing, I guess, talking about discernment is a big thing. Is talking about like tattoos and like what you do to your body. And then like piercings and stuff. So I don't know actually what your guys' opinions are on piercings and stuff.
So what I think is that tattoos aren't recommended, but you can still have them. Like for as a Christian standpoint, when you look at the Bible, the verse that comes into my mind is Leviticus 19:28. You shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor tattoo any marks on you. I am the Lord. You are defacing God's image. You are the temple of God. So, and that's Leviticus is Old Testament. So, the real question to a lot of people say is that we're in the New Testament right now.
We're in the New Covenant.
Yeah, we're in the New Covenant, in the New Testament. So, and this is Old Testament, so that doesn't follow us. Well,
Old
hold on
Covenant.
now. Huh?
Old Covenant.
Yeah, it's the Old Covenant, so it doesn't follow. But you have to keep in mind that the Old Testament, since it's Old Covenant, that you don't necessarily need to follow it, but it's still like wise to follow it. So for the markings, for an example, if you put tattoos on your body and you're a Christian, that's like it says in Leviticus that you're defacing God's image, and we're supposed to be representatives of Christ. So you shouldn't have markings on you, but can you still do it? Yes, because God gives you free will.
Well,
So
there's kind of because there's the moral law and more of the ceremonial law of the Old Covenant, and Jesus got rid of the ceremony. I would say the ceremonial, but it's like still we should still be following the moral law.
Yeah, so if you want an explanation, there's 3 different types of the Old Testament law, or the Old Covenant, or the Mosaic law, just however you want to talk about it. So there's the moral law, the ceremonial law, and the civil law. Now, the moral law and the civil law are very similar. They're like guidelines of like morals, obviously. And then the ceremonial law is like the festivals and feasts that under the new covenant we don't exactly have to follow. And I know a lot of the stuff in like the civil law we don't have to follow either, because that's stuff like circumcision, which we don't have to do now under Jesus because he is the new covenant, and
Now it's just more of a cleanliness thing. But
it's also just part of culture now.
yeah.
But so for stuff like the moral law, I think we're still obligated to follow that, because most of it, like a lot of laws in the Bible, is common sense. Like,
Yeah, what I was saying, I don't remember if I said it last episode, but there's nothing in the Bible that if you apply it to your life will not improve or is not a good thing to just operate in daily life. There's no
exactly
actual ideas or advice in the Bible that's contrary to actual morals.
Yeah, and I know in Galatians, when Paul names the fruits of the Spirit, he says in the verse, against such things there is no law, because they're all good things.
Mm-hmm. And this is one thing I'll see like scrolling on the internet is where people will try to debate Christianity online. They'll be like, yeah, Christians are just contrary to their own belief. They just don't even, they just say that, oh, we don't have to listen to our old law anymore. Talking about like they can't eat pork and like cleanliness laws and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's part of the ceremonial and civil law. And that wasn't even like stuff that they couldn't do. Like, that's not sinful things. It's just what God told them to do to separate themselves
and then they
from the Gentiles.
And they would have to sacrifice, like commit sacrifices and stuff.
Yeah.
But Jesus is our everlasting sacrifice, so we don't have to worry about that
anymore.
And with going back to like tattoos and piercings and stuff, the Bible says, because what I would say is there's nothing sinful about getting a tattoo or getting a piercing. And like in today's culture, like piercings, especially like ear piercings, like people have
almost every
like
female,
3/4 every
see,
female
right?
have, like, yeah. So like what I would say is 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 says, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own, you were bought at a price, therefore honor God with your bodies."
And then so here's kind of the way I see it. It depends on if you go on tattoos, what are you getting that tattoo of? Because like I've always said, if I got a tattoo, it would be a cross with my favorite Bible verse on it, and I don't think that's wrong because I'm trying to honor and show my faith through that.
Exactly.
And but if you're like showing weird like random pictures and designs, like it's like why there's no point to it. Like you can do it, but it doesn't look that good. And
Yeah, and then same with like piercings. It's not like people are girls are getting ear piercings to like dishonor God. Like that's not why they're trying to do it. They're trying to do it as first of all a cultural thing, as like accepted beauty standards. Just like people aren't against piercings, and it's not like they're intentionally sinning or doing anything wrong in having them. My sister's getting her ears pierced next week, I think. So, and then the other thing with tattoos, like every single track meet in the summer, on the backs of my calves, I put 2 crosses with 2 different Bible verses on there. And I've been talked to by teachers, coaches, and like athletes alike. And they've been like, "Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool that you're doing that." And I'll pick like different verses all the time. And I just think it's a way that I can show my faith in the world without, like, yes, I might see some people be like, "Oh, that's stupid. He's just doing that Bible stuff." But it's just a way I can show my faith in the outside world without talking to anyone. I can just do it.
yeah,
Exactly.
For me, it would be like how I would say it is wearing like Jesus merch, I guess. Like, so there's a camp that I go to, and there was a shirt that I got there that said "I thank God," and that's just something that like, or like I know I have a shirt that says Team Jesus or something like that, and it's just things like that that people would be like, "Well, what's that about?" Or yeah.
Well, that's one thing in our culture that's become desensitized. There's the word desensitized. That's the word I've been trying to say the entire time. People have desensitized the cross. Like some people just wear the cross as like they just think it's a sign of peace or it's a sign of like strength. A lot of people don't even realize when they wear like I wear a cross necklace everywhere I go. I have it. The only time I'll take it off is if like for track, so it doesn't like hit me in the eye or something. But I still have the crosses on my calves. But people will wear the crosses, have cross earrings, cross necklaces, and they don't even know what it truly means. They're not Christians. You're like, "Oh, I see you're wearing a cross. You must be a Christian." Like, "Oh, what?" No, but that's not. People don't even think of it as that anymore. That's not why people wear it as a sign of. We wear it as a sign of our faith. People just wear it as because they think it's a sign of peace or hope.
Like a good luck charm or something.
Yeah.
Well, so my opinion, if we go back to the tattoo topic, was my opinion on them. I don't think they're sinful at all. I think it's perfectly fine if you get a tattoo or a piercing. It's just I am a very like financial person. A lot of people in my family are. I like not buying a lot of things if I don't have to. So the idea of getting a tattoo or piercing is just not a good idea in my brain because I'm like,
it's an inconvenience.
well, I have to pay somebody to inflict something permanent that's going to be painful.
Yeah.
So it's just in my mind, it's just like, well, I just wouldn't do it in the first place then.
I guess we'll probably wrap up here quick, but there's a Babylon Bee video where this girl comes in and she's talking about like being rebellious. It's like she's acting like she's rebellious, and she goes up to this like tattoo parlor guy. She's like, "Can I get a tattoo?" He's like, "Not without your parents' permission." He's like, "Can I get a piercing?" "Nope, not without your parents' permission." She asks her a bunch of like, "Can I buy a rental car? Can I buy a cigarette? Can I get a vape pen? Can I get alcohol?" She says, "Can I?" He's like, "No, not without the age." She's like, "Can I book a hotel room?" "No." And then she's like, "Fine. Could I get an irreversible gender surgery?" And he's like, "Coming right up." And then he's like, and she's like, "Whoa, don't I need like parents' permission?" And he's like, "No, because they might be non-affirming. They might not accept you for who you truly are." And that's the thing that's stupid in our culture is that we accept certain things as fine for underage people, but then I could serve in the military for 2 years and not be able to drink when I came back, okay? So the one thing, to wrap it up, as Christians, I would say, unless you guys have anything else, our discernment in our culture, we need to realize what we're watching and taking into our minds, and we need to realize that certain things might not be the best things to watch and realize if it is a true problem that we need to deal with.